They underestimated us. The secret to humanity's fearsome power. Security classification Omega Black. Distribution. Galactic High Council members only. Temporal signature 7038.2.44 Galactic Standard. The chamber darkened as Admiral Zeltora moved toward the central projection field. The 12 members of the High Security Council shifted in their exoskeletons, a collective unease permeating the ancient chamber. This was the first emergency session called in over 300 cycles. "Counselors," the Admiral began, her outer membranes pulsing with stress chromatophores. "What I am about to share violates 8 separate non-interference protocols. The information was obtained at great cost. 7 of our most advanced reconnaissance units were lost gathering it." The central holographic field illuminated, displaying a small, unremarkable blue-green planet. "This," continued Zeltora, "is the homeworld of the species we've been monitoring since their first primitive radio emissions were detected. We designated them Species 3721. They call themselves humans." Grand Counselor Vissake raised a sensory appendage. "Admiral, we have monitored thousands of emergent species. What justifies this unprecedented session?" The Admiral's respiratory vents constricted. "Their capabilities have been severely miscalculated." She gestured, and the projection changed to display what appeared to be primitive spacecraft. "We initially classified them as a standard Type 2 emerging intelligence, aggressive but ultimately predictable. We estimated at least 15 millennia before they achieved reliable interstellar travel." Her voice modulator dropped to a lower register. "We were wrong." The projection shifted again, showing a series of technological developments. Their advancement doesn't follow any recognized pattern. They make conceptual leaps that defy our models. Consider their discovery of atomic energy. The Council watched as the projection displayed primitive nuclear devices. They weaponized atomic energy before using it for sustainable power generation. No other known species has followed this development path. It contradicts all established evolutionary models. "A concerning anomaly," noted Counselor Ezram, "but hardly." "This is merely the beginning," interrupted the Admiral. "Permit me to present Incident Alpha 16. The projection shifted to show footage from what appeared to be a monitoring post on a barren moon. A simple human craft approached, landing with primitive but effective technology. 2 bipedal figures emerged in sealed environmental suits. These humans reached their planetary satellite using computers less sophisticated than our food processing units. Their mathematical calculations were performed on paper, physical marks on processed plant matter. The Council chamber filled with harmonic vibrations of disbelief. We placed a standard warning beacon on their moon, as protocol demands for all potentially viable species. It contained a simple mathematical challenge designed to take a Type 2 species approximately 3 centuries to decode. The Admiral's chromatophores darkened. They solved it in under 7 of their planetary orbits. The projection shifted again, showing images of vast information networks. Their entire species is connected through a primitive but astonishingly robust information system. They call it the Internet. It allows instantaneous transfer of knowledge across their entire planet. This accelerates learning, offered Counselor Desmar. But many species develop similar. The system was fully implemented within a single generation, the Admiral continued. What takes most species 8 to 10 generations to adopt was embraced and transformed by humans in less than 1. Their adaptability exceeds anything in our records. The holographic field shifted again, displaying what appeared to be medical procedures. Now we come to their most disturbing characteristic. Humans routinely perform actions our scientists previously considered theoretical impossibilities. The images showed humans engaging in activities that made several council members recoil. They deliberately exposed themselves to increasing amounts of radiation to build tolerance. They intentionally introduced diseases into their bodies to develop immunity. They voluntarily deprive themselves of oxygen at high altitudes to force their bodies to adapt. Self-destruction as an evolutionary strategy. Counselor Visick's appendages trembled. Impossible. Observe their training methods, continued the Admiral, as the projection displayed humans lifting heavy objects repeatedly until muscle failure. They systematically damage their tissues to force their bodies to rebuild stronger. They call this exercise. They deliberately push themselves to the edge of death for enhancement. The council chamber fell silent. Their medical approach is equally disturbing. They cut open their bodies while conscious to repair damaged organs. They transplant body parts between individuals. They deliberately break their protective bone structures to correct abnormality, and most alarmingly, they have begun modifying their own genetic code. The Admiral paused, allowing the implications to settle. But these physiological anomalies pale compared to their psychological makeup. Our deepest intelligence gathering has revealed the most troubling aspect of all. The projection changed to display various human activities: warfare, exploration, artistic expression, scientific experimentation. Humans possess a quality that defies classification in our xenopsychological models. When confronted with extinction-level threats, instead of responding with increasing caution as evolutionary theory predicts, humans become more aggressive, more innovative, and more willing to accept risk. The Admiral gestured, and the projection showed historical images of human conflicts. During their most destructive planetary war, their rate of technological advancement increased by a factor of 20. The more dire their circumstances, the more rapidly they evolve solutions. Are you suggesting, Counselor Desmar's voice wavered, that this species thrives on catastrophe? Precisely, the Admiral confirmed. They have a concept they call impossible. When they designate something as impossible, they don't avoid it. They become obsessed with achieving it. The projection showed humans in various extreme environments: deep oceans, mountain peaks, polar regions, and barren deserts. They deliberately establish colonies in environments guaranteed to kill them, then develop technologies to survive. They subject themselves to conditions that would obliterate any rational species, and they do this voluntarily. The Grand Counselor's sensory appendages contracted in distress. What is your recommendation, Admiral? The Admiral's chromatophores pulsed with anxiety patterns. I recommend immediate implementation of Containment Protocol Omega. We must limit their expansion without direct confrontation. Explain, demanded the Grand Counselor. Our models indicate that direct conflict with humans would likely trigger their catastrophe response mechanisms. They would perceive us as an extinction-level threat and adapt accordingly. Based on their response patterns, they would likely reverse engineer our own technology and deploy it against us within a single generation. The chamber filled with harmonic vibrations of alarm. We intercepted one of their cultural transmissions, the Admiral continued, a communication they distribute to themselves. I believe it illustrates the fundamental danger they present. The projection displayed a simple text message, translated into standard Galactic. The most terrifying force of death comes from the hands of humans who wanted to be left alone. They try by whatever means to be left alone, but when they are finally forced to fight back, they are left with only their instincts and their will to survive or win. The Admiral's voice grew quieter. Our preliminary assessments labeled them as merely stubborn. We now understand this was catastrophically incorrect. They are something we've never encountered before, a species that transmutes existential dread into technological advancement. The projection shifted one final time, showing a human observatory pointing massive radio telescopes toward the stars. They're looking for us now. They call it SETID, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. They broadcast their position continuously, seemingly without fear. Or with too much confidence, murmured Counselor Ezerem. The Admiral's chromatophores flashed the pattern for extreme danger. They have a concept they call fiction, the deliberate creation of counterfactual scenarios. They imagine threats, specifically to develop countermeasures against dangers they haven't yet encountered. They prepare for wars with enemies they've never met. The chamber fell silent as the implications settled over the council. "We've encountered thousands of species across our history," the Admiral concluded, "but never one that evolved to weaponize its own fear. Never one that grows stronger when threatened. The humans have a saying that their intelligence analysts recovered. They underestimated us. I fear that we, too, have made this same critical error." The Grand Counselor's voice emerged, heavy with foreboding. "Begin Containment Protocol Omega. And may the Void protect us all if they discover our observations. For if humans thrive on confronting the impossible, what could be more impossible to them than conquering the stars?" As the council session concluded, a final image lingered in the projection field. A simple human spacecraft, primitive by galactic standards, carrying a golden disk with instructions for finding its origin world. Beneath the image, the translation of its message, "Here we are. Come find us." None of the council members could perceive the true horror in those words, an invitation that to any sane species should have been a warning. "You speak of theories and observations, Admiral," said Counselor Desmar, his neural crest flaring with skepticism. "What concrete evidence do you have of these capabilities?" Admiral Zeltora's outer membranes darkened. "I was hoping to avoid this level of detail. The psychological impact on this council may be destabilizing." The Grand Counselor's voice resonated with authority. "Proceed, Admiral. We must understand the full scope of the threat." "Very well." The Admiral gestured, and the holographic field shifted to a desolate landscape. "What you are seeing is an observation post we established on the 4th planet in their system. We designated it Observation Point Kappa." The council watched as the barren, rust-colored landscape came into focus. A small monitoring facility was visible, nestled between rocky outcroppings. 2 standard cycles ago, we detected unusual activity from Earth. They were launching a series of primitive probes toward this planet. The display showed crude mechanical devices parachuting onto the planet's surface. We assumed these were merely data-gathering tools. The environment on this planet is hostile. Extreme temperature variations, minimal atmosphere, high radiation. No species would consider it viable for colonization. The Admiral's voice modulator tightened. "We were wrong." The display showed more human craft arriving, larger and more sophisticated, small wheeled vehicles deployed onto the surface. They sent machines first, remote-controlled exploration devices. They operated these machines from their home planet, accepting a communication delay of over 20 minutes each way due to light speed limitation. "Persistent," noted Counselor Visak, "but hardly concerning." "Watch," instructed the Admiral. The projection advanced, showing the arrival of much larger spacecraft. Structures began to take shape on the surface. They established a permanent base on a planet that should kill them instantly. Their bodies are primarily water. They require constant hydration, stable temperatures, and a precise atmospheric mixture to survive. This planet offers none of these. The Council observed humans in protective suits moving carefully through the structure. "But how they solved these problems is what should concern us," continued the Admiral. "Instead of abandoning an inhospitable environment, they developed what they call terraforming techniques." The display showed humans setting up machinery that began extracting elements from the soil. They developed methods to extract oxygen from the planet's mineral composition. They built habitats using the planet's own resources, and most disturbingly, they began experiments to radically alter the planet's entire atmosphere. They seek to transform the planet itself. Counselor Ezram's appendages trembled. "Yes. Their solution to an uninhabitable environment is not to adapt themselves or seek a more suitable world. It is to fundamentally remake the planet to their specifications." The Admiral advanced the projection, showing increasingly complex human outposts. Their approach violates every principle of ecological harmony, yet it is devastatingly effective. Where we would spend millennia carefully adapting to a new environment through guided evolution, they simply change the environment itself. Several council members shifted uncomfortably in their exoskeletons. "But this is not the most disturbing evidence," continued the Admiral. "I direct your attention to Incident Sigma 12. The projection shifted to show a different scene, a vast ocean on Earth, with a massive drilling platform visible. 3 of their planetary cycles ago, the humans experienced a catastrophic industrial accident. One of their deep ocean extraction facilities malfunctioned, releasing enormous quantities of toxic hydrocarbons into their planet's largest ocean. The Council watched footage of dark fluid gushing from the ocean floor. Our models predicted they would abandon the damaged facility. The extraction point was 1,500 meters below their ocean surface, beyond the survivable pressure threshold for their species. The temperature at that depth would kill them within minutes of exposure. The technical complexity of repairing such damage was, by our assessment, beyond their current capabilities. The Admiral's voice grew quieter. What they actually did violated our understanding of rational behavior. The projection showed humans mobilizing massive resources, ships, submarines, and specialized equipment. They refused to accept the damage as permanent. Instead, a single human, a problem solver they called Thomas Marshall, proposed a solution deemed impossible by their own experts. The holographic field displayed technical schematics of a complex device. Marshall designed a containment system that required human operators to work at pressures that should crush their bodies. The materials needed for the repair didn't exist, so they invented them. The tools required didn't exist, so they created them. The calculations necessary to model the fluid dynamics exceeded their most advanced computing systems, so they... The Admiral paused, her chromatophores pulsing with distress. They networked millions of their personal computing devices together, creating a temporary supercomputer by linking citizens' machines across their planet. They called it distributed computing. It was assembled and operational within 7 days. The projection showed humans working feverishly, constructing components on the surface while divers operated in the depths below. Marshall proposed using sound waves to aggregate the dispersed hydrocarbons, a technique our scientists had theorized but never successfully implemented. It required precise calibration that we believed needed at least 100 years of research to perfect. The display showed the containment system being lowered into the ocean. The humans perfected it in 40 days. One human life cycle is approximately 80 planetary orbits. They solved in 40 days what should have taken 2 human lifetimes. The chamber fell silent as the implications settled over the Council. When we reviewed the psychological profiles of the humans involved, we discovered something even more disturbing, continued the Admiral. They experienced a state they call flow, a condition where imminent catastrophe doesn't impair cognitive function, but actually enhances it. Their problem-solving capabilities increase proportionally with the magnitude of the disaster they face. The Grand Counselor's sensory appendages contracted. "You mean to tell us that this species becomes more intelligent when confronted with extinction?" "Yes. They have turned desperation itself into a cognitive tool." The Admiral advanced the projection again, showing various human creative works, books, films, artwork. They also possess a unique form of predictive cognition. They author elaborate fictional scenarios of their own destruction. They call this genre apocalyptic fiction. They deliberately envision countless ways their civilization might end, and then develop theoretical countermeasures. They rehearse extinction in their minds, whispered Counselor Viss. "Precisely," confirmed the Admiral. "And now we face a crisis where this peculiar psychology may have galactic implications." The holographic field shifted to display a massive object moving through space, an asteroid approximately 19 kilometers in diameter. "This is celestial body TD-30D8. Our astronomers recently calculated its trajectory. In approximately 30 cycles, it will impact a populated world in the Zeta Reticuli system. 6 billion sentient beings are at risk. The council members emitted harmonics of distress. We have run simulations through our most advanced quantum systems, continued the Admiral. There is no viable solution given our current technology. The object is too massive for deflection, too dense for fragmentation. The extinction of the Reticulians is unavoidable, asked the Grand Counselor. According to our models, yes, confirmed the Admiral. However, she paused, her respiratory vents constricting. However, our monitoring systems detected unusual activity from Earth. Approximately 20 rotations ago, they detected the asteroid using their primitive astronomical tools, despite having no connection to the Reticulan civilization, despite not even knowing of their existence. The humans began developing theoretical approaches to planetary defense. The projection displayed images of human scientists working frantically in laboratories and control centers. A human problem solver named James Wheeler has proposed a solution. I struggle to convey the full horror of it. It is effective, but its implications are beyond disturbing. The holographic field displayed technical schematics of devices being attached to massive rockets. Wheeler proposes converting their entire nuclear weapons arsenal, devices designed to kill each other, into propulsion systems. They would launch these weapons into space, rendezvous with the asteroid, and detonate them in precisely calculated sequences to alter the object's trajectory. They would use weapons of war for preservation. Counselor Ezarm's neural folds pulsated with confusion. Yes, but there's more. The payload delivery system would require a guidance mechanism of unprecedented precision. Wheeler proposes sending humans alongside the nuclear devices. Shocked harmonic vibrations filled the chamber. The mission would be, by their own calculations, unsurvivable. The human term is suicide mission. Wheeler has proposed that human pilots guide the weapons to their targets, remaining on board to make final trajectory adjustments. They would sacrifice themselves for a species they've never encountered. The Grand Counselor's voice wavered. Yes, and most disturbing of all, thousands of humans have already volunteered. The Admiral's chromatophores displayed complex patterns of existential dread. The probability of success, according to our models, is 78.3%. Their crude approach would actually work. They would save the Reticulian civilization through means we consider technologically regressive and morally abhorrent. The chamber fell silent. This leaves us with a terrible choice, concluded the Admiral. If we maintain our policy of non-interference, the Reticulians will perish. If we allow the humans to implement their solution, they will save the Reticulians, but in doing so, reveal their existence to the galactic community. The Admiral's voice dropped to a lower register. Our psychological models indicate that once humans confirm the existence of other intelligent life, their development will accelerate exponentially. Within a single generation, they would achieve interstellar travel. Within 2, they would expand beyond their local cluster. Within 3, they would become a dominant force in the galaxy. The Grand Counselor's appendages trembled visibly now. And your recommendation, Admiral? I cannot offer one. Both paths lead to outcomes that violate our most sacred principles. Either we condemn billions to death through inaction, or we risk unleashing a species that treats impossibility as a temporary inconvenience. The holographic field shifted one final time, showing a message intercepted from Earth. A simple text communication from James Wheeler to his planetary leadership. The mathematics are solid, we can save them. We must try. What kind of species would we be if we had the power to prevent an extinction and chose to do nothing? This is why we exist, to rage against the dying of the light, even if it isn't our own, especially when it isn't our own. The Admiral's final words hung in the chamber like a death knell. We have 20 rotations to decide. The humans are preparing their mission now. Once launched, we cannot recall it. We must either destroy their fleet before it leaves their solar system, revealing ourselves in the process and triggering the very acceleration we fear, or allow them to proceed, knowing that their success means our galaxy will never be the same again. The Grand Counselor rose, towering over the projection field. We will reconvene in one rotation to cast our votes. Consider carefully, counselors. Today, we decide not only the fate of the Reticulians, but perhaps our own as well. As the council members filed out, their chromatophores pulsing with patterns of deep existential terror, the image of Wheeler's message remained. What kind of species would we be if we had the power to prevent an extinction and chose to do nothing? In that single sentence lay the fundamental horror, a species that viewed inaction in the face of catastrophe as a greater evil than self-sacrifice. A species that, when confronted with an impossible problem affecting strangers they would never meet, responded not with acceptance, but with rage against the very concept of limitation. The humans were coming, and the galaxy trembled. The council chamber had never known such silence. For 3 rotations, the 12 highest minds of the Galactic Confederation had deliberated on the human question. Now, as they reconvened for the final decision, the weight of countless civilizations pressed upon them. The Grand Counselor's voice resonated through the chamber. Before we cast our votes, Intelligence Director Zefthal has requested an emergency audience. The Director claims to have discovered critical information that may influence our decision. Harmonic vibrations of surprise rippled through the chamber. Intelligence operations were rarely acknowledged in council proceedings, much less granted direct audience. The chamber's entry portal dilated, and Director Zefthal entered. Unlike the Admiral's formal bearing, the Intelligence Director moved with the fluid grace of one accustomed to shadows. Her chromatophores were locked in the neutral pattern of one who had disciplined all emotional expression. Director, acknowledged the Grand Counselor. The Council recognizes your request. Proceed. Zefthal moved to the center of the chamber. Without preamble, she activated the holographic field. Counselors, what I am about to reveal was obtained at extraordinary cost. 3 of our deepest cover operatives sacrificed themselves to extract this data. The information was deemed too sensitive for standard transmission protocols. The projection displayed a series of human medical facilities. Inside, researchers worked with equipment that appeared primitive by galactic standards. For the past 30 rotations, we have conducted enhanced surveillance of human medical and scientific communications. We sought to understand how they approach the asteroid crisis. What we discovered was unexpected. The Director's chromatophores flickered briefly with a pattern the Council had never seen before, a complex emotion without translation. The humans are not merely planning a response to the asteroid. They are experiencing a fundamental transformation of their species, a cognitive evolutionary leap occurring in real time. The projection shifted to show brain scans of human subjects. These are neurological patterns from humans engaged in problem-solving tasks. The baseline scans are from 40 cycles ago. The comparison scans were taken within the last rotation. The Council observed the images, even to untrained observers. The difference was striking. The newer patterns showed dramatically increased neural connections, novel activation patterns, and entirely new structures. Our xenobiologists confirm what we're seeing is unprecedented. A species-wide neural reorganization occurring within a single generation, not through genetic engineering or technological augmentation, but through a natural process we've never observed before. How is this possible? Demanded Counselor Visick. No species can evolve this rapidly without intervention. That was our assumption as well, replied the Director. Until we discovered this. The projection displayed humans engaged in an activity the translation matrix identified as meditation. Humans possess a unique capability, one our scientists previously dismissed as a random evolutionary artifact. They can voluntarily alter their conscious state. They call this mindfulness. What we fail to understand is that this isn't a vestigial function, It's the foundation of their adaptability. The director advanced the projection, showing humans in various environments, laboratories, homes, wilderness settings, all engaged in similar practices. When humans face existential threats, they don't merely accelerate their technological development, they fundamentally alter their perception of reality itself. They can switch between what they call focused and diffuse thinking modes, voluntarily. They can perceive patterns across seemingly unrelated domains. They can imagine realities that don't exist and then bring them into existence. The council chamber filled with harmonics of disbelief. Most species in our records evolved consciousness as a survival mechanism, a way to navigate physical threats. Human consciousness evolved differently. It became recursive, aware of itself. They can examine their own thought processes, identify flaws in their cognition, and correct them in real time. The director's voice modulator conveyed a tone the council had never heard from her before, something approaching awe. This gives them an advantage we never considered possible. When faced with extinction, they don't merely fight harder or think faster. They transform the very nature of their thinking. The holographic field shifted to display communications intercepted from Earth. Scientists sharing information across their global network, building on each other's insights, reaching conclusions that should have taken centuries to develop. In response to the asteroid threat, they've developed a new framework they call collective intelligence amplification. They're networking their minds together in ways that transcend their technological limitations. They're using primitive tools to achieve post-singularity cognitive functions. Are you suggesting, asked the Grand Counselor, that these beings have achieved a form of collective consciousness? No, replied the director. That's what makes them truly unique. They maintain individual identity while simultaneously functioning as a collective. Each human mind retains its distinctive perspective while contributing to the whole. They do not sacrifice individuality for unity as we assumed any collective intelligence must. The projection displayed the technical specifications of the mission the humans had designed to deflect the asteroid. Their solution to the asteroid threat isn't merely a technical response, it's a philosophical one. They're not simply sending weapons and sacrificial pilots, they're sending a cognitive framework, encoded into the mission parameters. The director expanded the display, highlighting aspects of the human plan previously overlooked. The nuclear devices aren't merely propulsion systems, they're components of a synchronized reaction network designed to create a precise gravitational lens. The human pilots aren't suicide volunteers, they're consciousness anchors, maintaining the human perspective necessary to make real-time adaptations to the network. A gravitational lens? Counselor Ezerem's neural crest flared. That's beyond their technological capability. By all our models, yes, confirmed the director. But they've developed a theory they call emergence, the principle that systems can develop properties none of their individual components possess. They're using primitive technologies arranged in patterns of unprecedented complexity to achieve effects no single component could produce. The council chamber grew unnaturally still as the implications settled over them. But the most disturbing revelation came from our deep analysis of their philosophical frameworks, continued the director. The human named Wheeler wasn't merely proposing a technical solution, he was articulating a worldview unique among all known species. The holographic field displayed the full text of Wheeler's communication. The mathematics are solid. We can save them. We must try. What kind of species would we be if we had the power to prevent an extinction and chose to do nothing? This is why we exist, to rage against the dying of the light, even if it isn't our own. Especially when it isn't our own. Our greatest strength isn't our technology or our intelligence. It's our capacity to care about beings we've never met. It's our willingness to define our moral worth, not by what we gain, but by what we give. The universe is indifferent to suffering. We are not. That's our superpower. Even if we fail, we must try. Because in the attempt itself, we become more than we were. We evolve not through the blind mechanisms of natural selection, but through conscious choice, we decide what we will become. And today, we decide to become a species that fights extinction wherever we find it, even across the stars. The director's chromatophores pulsed with a complex pattern of existential revelation. This philosophy is unlike anything in our records. All other known species define moral obligation within boundary conditions: kin, tribe, species, alliance. Humans reject these limitations entirely. They extend moral consideration to hypothetical beings they have never encountered and never will. They take action based not on benefit, but on an abstract principle they call compassion. Surely this is merely their rationalization, objected Counselor Desmoor. No species acts against its own interests. That was our assumption, replied the director. We were wrong. The projection shifted to display the launch preparations for the human mission. Thousands of humans working together, pooling resources, sacrificing comfort and safety for a goal from which they would derive no direct benefit. They genuinely believe that preventing suffering anywhere is intrinsically valuable. This isn't a calculated strategy. It's the foundation of their identity as a species, and it gives them an advantage no other species possesses: the ability to cooperate without limitation across any boundary. The director advanced the projection one final time, showing the human fleet preparing to depart their solar system. Our deepest penetration agents have confirmed the mission's parameters. The humans have developed a solution that exceeds our most advanced theoretical models. They will successfully deflect the asteroid. The Reticulians will survive, and in doing so the humans will demonstrate a capability that fundamentally alters the balance of power in the galaxy. What do you recommend, Director? Asked the Grand Counselor. Zephil's chromatophores displayed the formal pattern of ultimate certainty, a configuration rarely seen in council proceedings. We must establish direct contact with the humans immediately, not to stop them, but to join them. Harmonic vibrations of shock filled the chamber. Our models indicate that humans will achieve interstellar capability within 1 generation, with or without our intervention. Their cognitive evolution cannot be stopped. The only variable we can influence is whether they perceive us as allies or obstacles. You propose we reveal ourselves. The Grand Counselor's sensory appendages trembled. After 15 million cycles of non-interference policy? Yes, because the humans have revealed something our civilization has forgotten: the value of purposeful evolution. They are becoming what they choose to become, not merely what survival dictates. This capacity represents an opportunity we cannot ignore. The director's voice grew stronger. The void nexus has expanded by 12% in the past cycle. Our projections indicate total galactic consumption within 500 cycles. All our attempts to contain it have failed. We face extinction on a scale unprecedented in cosmic history. The chamber fell silent at the mention of the void nexus, the expanding region of space where physical laws themselves seem to unravel, where entire star systems simply cease to exist. The humans possess exactly the cognitive framework needed to confront the nexus. They thrive on existential threats. They transform limitation into opportunity. They perceive patterns we cannot. And most importantly, they care about extinction, even when it isn't their own. The Grand Counselor rose to full height, towering over the projection field. You ask us to place the fate of galactic civilization in the hands of a species that still wars with itself, that has existed for less than 1/10,000th of our history. Yes, replied the director without hesitation, because they are the only species in our records that evolved consciousness as a tool of creation rather than merely survival. They imagine worlds that don't exist and then bring them into existence. This is precisely the capability needed to confront the void nexus. For a full rotation of the planet below, the council deliberated. Finally, the Grand Counselor activated the diplomatic protocols that had remained dormant for 15 million cycles. Director Zephil, you will establish contact with the humans. You will offer them full disclosure of our existence and the nature of the threat we face. You will propose an alliance against the Void Nexus. The Grand Counselor's final words resonated through the chamber with the weight of history being rewritten. For 15 million cycles, we have been the shepherds of this galaxy. We have guided civilizations, preserved ecological balance, and maintained the great harmony. Today, we acknowledge that our time as shepherds is ending. The humans are not merely another species to be guided. They are the firewall between existence and oblivion. They possess what we have lost, the ability to evolve through choice rather than necessity. Their compassion makes them dangerous. Their capacity for self-transformation makes them unpredictable. Their willingness to sacrifice for abstract principles makes them unlike any species we have encountered, and these very qualities make them the only hope against the void. May the cosmos forgive us for what we are about to unleash upon the galaxy, for the humans will change everything. They will disrupt the harmony we have maintained for eons. They will introduce chaos into order, but they may also preserve existence itself. The age of stability is over. The age of transformation begins. As the council session concluded, the final image in the projection field showed the human fleet departing Earth orbit. Primitive vessels carrying an evolutionary advantage no technology could match. Minds that chose to care about the survival of strangers across the stars. In that moment, the true nature of humanity's fearsome power was finally understood. Not their technology, not their adaptability, not even their unique neural architecture, but something far simpler and far more profound, their capacity to choose what they would become, and their decision to become protectors of life itself. They had been underestimated indeed,